Before we get going into the video, my name is Brando for the new viewers. I'm the founder of Brandlux Media. We are an e-commerce growth agency. We've been able and so fortunate to work with 100 plus partners. And so the reason I started this channel is to document every framework that I know is proven to work and that actually work so that you can get some value from it and, hopefully make your business a success. With no further ado, I hope you enjoy this video. In this video, I'm going to bring you through the exact infrastructure and how we are scaling a business that is currently generating over $60,000 in sales every single day. Everybody speaks about 8-figure businesses here and there, shows you 20, 30, 40, $50,000 days, but they don't actually pull down the curtains and show you the exact process and infrastructure of the business that is, that you need to build and operate under to get numbers like this. So I'm going to pull down the curtains, show you exactly what are the things that we are focusing on to achieve these numbers so that hopefully you can get some value and scale to 8 figures yourself. Okay, let's get right into the video. Before we get going, as usual, I like to show some proof. I always do this. It became pretty much a routine because everybody's requesting for it, which I understand. But this is just a client that, yesterday we scaled them to $60,000 in sales in a single day, $61.4 thousand. Let me just refresh. So, this is real. There we go. We actually did $74,000 in gross sales, but due to discounts, as you can see, some returns here and there in other things, it ended up having, $61,000. And we did the same thing the day prior and the day prior. And of course, we're also kind of like in a sweet spot in terms of time period. It is Q4, but these are pretty standard numbers that the business actually sees throughout the year. And this client that I'm showing you, I've actually done other case studies. I mean, I don't work with 300 businesses at the same time, so it makes sense for me to show you case studies of brands that I've already spoken about. So this is not a new client or anything, but yeah, just to show you some numbers and what it actually is possible if you build the right systems and processes in place and put your energy in the right place, I would say, because everybody puts their energy in the wrong places, not making scale happen in the first place just because of that reason. They're putting their efforts where it doesn't actually really matter and bring the needle forward. Okay, cool. As you can see from the title, 8-figure principles of scaling an e-commerce brand. I'm gonna go through different principles one by one, so stick with me until the end. I can assure you that all of these things that I'm going to talk about are really fundamental, and I will go into the nitty and gritty and also share my screen and show you some charts, some Excel sheets that we really use that help us get these results. But I need you to also understand that you need to understand the framework behind how to build a business, not copy paste. Okay, that's what everybody else is doing, copying and pasting. If you understand the psychology behind how an 8-figure business actually operates, then you have that knowledge that you can leverage over others, which makes the entire, makes your business entirely different operationally, right? So let's talk about the first thing and first principle. First of all, if you don't have a team, some sort of team that can help you scale, scale your creative inputs. And as you can see here, I have this very quick example that I'm going to share in just a second. I'm going to explain what I mean by these, spend and creatives charts. If you don't have a creative infrastructure team that will allow you to 10x the amounts of creatives that you can generally publish, you will not be able to scale. Like, it's very, very simple. So if you can think that you can just scale all the way up by just increasing and turning on like a notch, a special secret notch, it's just not how it works. And if you're watching this video and you're doing already 50, 100K a month or more, maybe even $500,000 a month, who knows? You probably already know this thing. So in order for scale to happen, you need to always have a surplus of creatives. So if you're spending $10,000 a day, or sorry, let's just say $10,000 a month, and you want to go to from $10,000 to $20,000 a month, you have to increase and have always a surplus of creatives. UGC, videos, images, creative concepts, marketing angles, all that stuff needs to be on point. If you don't have the team, in-house team, whether it's an agency, in-house, whatever you want, partners here and there that can help you with this, you have no chance. And just being very, very direct. So before we speak about anything else, you have to understand that in order to pump 30, 40, 50, 60, $100,000 days, for this client in some scenarios in like the holiday promotional periods, we've gone up to like $250,000 in sales in a single day, which is quite crazy, which is not only due to creatives, it's due to building an entire infrastructure that I'm going to talk about in the rest of the video. But assuming ads were a pretty big portion of that, this is what you need. So this is how social works. If you're going after Google, it's actually quite different. Google will just depend on keywords. So you have to, to scale, you have to like find competitive phrase matches or that are less competitive, like keywords that are just less competitive, so that you can get more volume in. But with social media, which is typically where most of our clients spend, I would say most of our clients spend between 70% to 80% of their total budget on social media platforms like TikTok and most importantly Meta, which is the most popular one. This is how the approach that we take. It's a creative first approach. Now, the question now is, how do we handle, assuming you have something that by the way, I'm assuming like if you're a beginner, this video will also help you because it will frame your mind in the right way to move forward and build something sustainable. But if you are a business that is currently spending like 30, 40, $50,000 a month, even maybe $100,000 a month, this is really, really important because the testing versus scaling is what, or I should say, how you distribute your time, the 80%, 20% rule on what should be scaled and what should be tested, right? Everybody says, oh, we need to test more. We need to test more, we need to test more, and then they just don't have a very good understanding of what budget they're putting into testing new campaigns, and then they look at their P&L at the end of the month, and they're barely breaking even, which is of course could be maybe what you want if you can sustain it, but some businesses cannot because they have a lot of expenses, right? So this is how you need to strategically do it, and this is how we do it every single time. We spend 80% of our time building creative concepts, as I say over here, creatives, marketing angles, creative concepts, images, videos, UGC, B-rolls, on things that we already know that work, okay, based on track record. We know that they work, we spend our time, and 80% of our time, especially during holiday and promotional periods where there's no need to reinvent the wheel, we spend 80% of our time building systems and creative systems that are already proven to work. If UGC 1 variation B2 works, we will try to replicate that as much as possible until it burns out and just doesn't work anymore. That's the whole point of advertising, okay? Now, 20% of your budget and 20% of your time and resources and team, whoever you're working with or partnering with, should go towards testing creatives that are completely out of like just completely new concepts that you maybe saw competitive that you didn't test before, or you have an idea for an angle that you've never tested before or something unique. This is the 20% where you can just like go on full on creativity and try to test things that you've never tested before or that the market never tested before, and you want to see if they work just the way that you're presenting your brand. This 20% will keep this 80% full, because as soon as we find something, boom, our resources are going to go towards here because it's proven. Let's just say we test 10 things, one is a killer and it's working well, then that one concept is going to go towards 80% of our time, right? So it's a consistent, never stopping and never ending loop where we find winning concepts, completely new from scratch, which is 20%, and then we put them into our 80% of resources, which is how we scale and double, triple, 10x down on what is currently working or what gave us very good opportunity in terms of like good KPIs. Now, the goal of this approach is to make sure that we have business one compared to business two. Business two is what most people do, and why they can maybe have a 7-figure month and then the next month it just completely dies out. They don't have a differentiated way of scaling, okay? And stick with me, I promise, stick with me, because I want to show you a chart in just a second that can help you systematize the way that you're creative testing, because there's nothing worse than testing a bunch of things and you don't know what like you're just hoping that something sticks on the wall. So what we want to do as we test the 20% is make sure that we have a systematized way of actually getting data back and analyzing these tests so that we can come up with calculated future tests without just putting things on the wall hoping something sticks. It's all calculated. This is how we're able to get to these numbers, okay? So business number one, just very quickly, is a business that has, and I spoke about this chart in other videos as well, but it's a business that has a distribution of their cash flow with marketing angles. And this could be like different marketing angles, but they could also be like different creative concepts. So take it with a grain of salt. It's a mixture between, concepts or angles that can scale. And so typically an 8-figure business has like angle 1 that gets 5%, angle 3 that gets 10. And of course, there are going to be those 1 or 2 winning, super cool angles that are just pumping like 50% of the business or more. But overall, business number one has a distributed flow and cash flow. So it's a lot more smooth and inconsistent without having revenue days that are like 50% up and down between one and the other day, which makes business very stressful. We are in e-commerce, which will happen, but the more we can smoothen the process out and the more we can run the business in a much more consistent and predictable way, right? And so this is the best way to do it. This is business number one. And it sucks because maybe for 3 months in a row you get to 6 figures or 7 figures in a month, $1 million a month, and then it dies out because that's every single time that this is what happens. Typically, the product or some features and benefits of the product get saturated. Same thing with marketing angles. Same thing with creatives, which is why we need to have always a full creative pipeline, right? So what ends up happening is that eventually this is just going to go down and down and down and down. It's not going to work anymore, and then your business is going to start tanking. It's just how it works. Same thing with products, right? Not all products, because some products are evergreen, right? But in most cases. And then they only have maybe another angle, which is 10%. So this goes down to like from 90 to like 20%, right? In terms of like, cash flow distribution. And then you're basically, you're back to square one. So you always want to have a consistent, this type of business is typically the business where they test a bunch of things. They start well. As soon as they find something that works, they just do that and basically stop testing. And this is, not the model that I explained before. Okay. Now let's talk about strategic creative testing, because as I said before, there's nothing worse than as we establish that this is how we want to do it, 80%, 20% rule with testing new angles, we have to make sure that every single test that we put out to the market is calculated and somewhat has some data. Even if we're testing completely new concepts, everything needs some sort of calculation and decision-making process. You can't just wake up during the morning and say, hey, I went in the park and I saw a beautiful tree which made me think of, angle 2. Like, it's not how it works. Everything needs to be so strategic and so analytical. You have to be such a nerd to scale these types of businesses, okay? And, I consider myself a nerd, but my team, if we ever end up working together and you'll meet my team, you'll notice how nerdy they are compared to what I am. Okay, so let me show you a chart. But before I do, before I show you the Excel sheet, which I want to show you, which is super important, I want to kind of explain how this works. Let's just say we test 4 different angles and 2 are winners, right? This is where we have to really triple down on scaling what is working, right? Which is the 80% rule. And this is how we do it. So if creator number 4 and creator number 5 in this angle 2 are really working well, then what we do is that we leverage those same creators or very similar creators and either scale the same exact creative concept or scale that angle with that same frame and same creator or similar creator at least with a creative concept that is completely new. And I'm going to bring you through a sheet which will explain exactly what I'm talking about here. So stick with me. So this is the sheet that I want to talk to you about. I go through this sheet in other videos, but hey, guess what? If you want to scale a business, there's probably a gazillion ways to do it. I know one or a couple. I'm just going to share every single time I hop on a video, and if it's boring for you, I really don't care, but because this is what we do repeatedly. Building a business to multiple 7 and 8 figures in revenue per year is a very boring and repeatable process. This is what you need to wrap into your mind. And as soon as we find something that works, just like the 80%, 20% rule, we stick to it. And we are sticking to our same system. So if you're looking at the screen and you're seeing the same exact video that I, format or Excel sheet or Google sheet that I presented 2 weeks ago, maybe the channel is not for you. Now, this is what I want to talk about here. This is how we create or scale creative concepts. As I showed you before, once we find an angle, we want to scale that angle with creative concepts. And this is what we do internally at the team, is that we have a creative concepts sheet where we basically have, and if you want this, you can join my community. This is where I share everything. You can get inspo links. And essentially what we do is that, okay, let's just say double chin angle and snacked jawline angle are working very well. Now what we do is that we scale them, and let's just say these 2 angles, we mostly used us versus them images or videos or whatever, us versus them concept. What we want to do next is basically go in here and search for 5, 10, 20 other concepts that we can test and scale with the same exact angle, because we want to scale the angle that is working, right? And then we do the same exact thing with hooks, and this is empty because we have like a library full of hooks, this thing over here, and we basically add angles, hooks over here, and once we find a winning, let's just say POV creative concepts, that we get the same exact process and we scale it and test it with like 5 or 6 or 10 different hooks. The first 3 to 5 seconds we just completely change, and that's a great way to scale as well. Now what I wanted to show you, which is how to systematically track, is making sure that every single ad set or creative concept or concept in general that you test is being tracked in your sheets. Okay, so if you don't have this process, you need it, because this is really systematic and really nerdy, but it's really gonna help you make decisions and not just like think in the middle of the night, oh, what should I test with my ad accounts, or how is my creative concept performing, and should I do more of it? Like, this is your answer here, and you don't even have to look at your ad account. You need to look at these sheets. So every single test is, we have this, this formula, which is, as you fill up this entire sheet, it basically populates the ad set name. So you can just copy paste this into your ad set. But let's just say we have a CBO for one product, and we have like one ad set and creative concept that we want to test. This is how we would put it in the sheet. Test number one. Test number one, we would name it product. We would name it feminine spirit. This is like the angle, and whether it's an image or a video. Okay, then these are like other columns where we say, okay, date that is launched, or a month where we launched it, and there we use these other columns and more info just to create graphical representations, which I can show you in just a second. But yeah, we have the product, we put the break even, etc., etc. We fill this up with the marketing angle, the emotion that we want to drive, that we drove for the ad set that we launched, the avatar customer that we're going after, the hook that we used, the messaging that we used, the copy that we used, whether it was an image or a video or a GIF or whatever, the creative that we used, everything. And what we end up doing is that once or twice every week, we have an assistant in our team that goes in here and tells us, okay, this is live. Let's just say it's this one over here. This one over here we're evaluating. We spent 1.1K. It's at 2.5 ROAS. I'm not sure why this is orange. It should probably be green because it's profitable. But, to my point, everything is color coded. This is a demo sheet, so bear with me. But everything should be color coded as well. So green means good, red means bad. And so we go in here and say, okay, 1.1K in spend, ROAS is good, CTR is decent, cost per click is a little bit on the high end, right? Which can give us insight on what we should do next to maybe decrease this cost per click from 2.12 to maybe 1.5. Well, like what can we do? Let's look at the numbers, right? And then conversion rate, AOV, CPMs, all that stuff. Hook rate, this is, it's a demo, so I need to fill it up here. But once we gather all of this data, we can come up with learnings and say, okay, this worked, but this was the problem. Or this other thing really worked well, there was no issue, we should do more of that. This process is basically forcing us to come up with next steps that are purely calculated and based on numbers, which is what you need to do. And then once you fill up all these sheets, you can create automatic graphical representations of graphs like this. Okay, this month we tested 7 concepts, or in this week, or whatever you want to do. 50% of those were videos, 50% of those were images and GIFs. This is our win rate. So out of like 10 ad sets, 1 is really scaling well, right? Which is, somewhat decent. 30% are losers. 23% are break even, and 35% are to be determined, meaning we didn't spend enough to determine whether it was a winner or a loser. So these are just like, we actually go really more in depth by showing like different graphs here and there, but this is just like one type of like really cool Excel sheet that we use every single time when we want to scale. So let me just go back over here, and this goes back to strategic creative testing. Strategic Excel sheets, strategic. You need to use Excel sheets, or else you're not strategic. Can't just go wandering your ad account hoping to see good numbers or whatever. You have to be very strategic, and you need to document every single ad copy, creative hook, ad set, creative concept, marketing, and everything into a very simple to understand sheet where you can make calculated decisions. Hopefully I'm not boring you to death, but this is what you need to do. Okay, let's move on. Scale with retention systems. There's nothing worse and so irritating to me that if you spend, even just like $1,000 a day, even $500 a day, even if you're doing super low scale, there's nothing worse than not having a system where you are retaining clients and you're not collecting emails, or you're not optimizing your pop-ups. It should be around 5, 6, 7%. That's our average pop-up opt-in rate. So out of 100 people, 7 people give us their email, right? We want to get those people and store them and just run specific calculated email campaigns on the back end to run smoothly. And so this is how we do it. This is the sales journey. As they go through the sales journey, we want to send super segmented emails. Now, I have a whole cool, super in-depth video on email marketing and what flows to set up. And you can take a look at my other YouTube videos. You can just you should type maybe in the search bar in my channel, type in like email marketing or Klaviyo, something like that, and you will find it. I bring you through an entire diagram that shows you the systems and processes that you need to set up in terms of flows, pop-ups, email campaigns, post-purchase flows, pre-purchase flows, everything. Okay, but 8-figure companies have around 30% of the revenue coming from, bare minimum is 20, coming from email marketing. And the good news about the client that I just showed you is actually we just took on from another agency which was doing pretty poorly, to be honest. And the moment we took, the driver's seat, we're seeing like around 15%, and it was like 10% when we joined. So we get these numbers, but it's not even at its full potential. So imagine when you get to 20, 25, 30, maybe 30% of revenue just coming from email. It's going to be much, much better. So this is absolutely what you need to do. Collect data. Just imagine collecting data and having like 100,000 subscribers. What can you do with those? How many weekly campaigns can you send out? How much extra revenue can you generate? So this is the super low hanging fruit that everybody just says, yeah, okay, email marketing, SMS marketing, yeah, sure, doesn't work, or maybe it's like it's too much work on the back end. Let me just focus on the front and grow and scale. Like that's not how you scale operationally and profitably. Like it doesn't make any sense. So have a process that works like this. And also you should have, I didn't mention this over here, but you should have upsells and downsells to increase your AOV. So anything that you can that increases LTV or AOV and conversion rate, put it within your sales process. And typically what you want to do here, just to kind of like end the argument over here, you should also have a whoops, let me say downsell. I don't know how to spell downsell. You should have a downsell. So when people go through checkout and they buy and they give you the credit card and they purchase, instead of redirecting them to a thank you page, they see an upsell, which is something that costs more based on what they previously just bought. And if they say no to the upsell, you show them a downsell, maybe the same offer or slightly different product or offering with which is lower priced, like maybe like by 50%. And then if they say yes to the upsell, you upsell them again, because like chances are that they say yes, they're in buying mode and they're just willing to spend money right now. And that's what we want to do and capitalize on. And then you can send them on a thank you page, and here is where you maybe have like coupon codes for the next purchase or like other suggested products to a post purchase upsell, right? And then you should do the same thing, redirect them back to these offers within your segmented email flows and campaigns. Okay, segmenting is really, really important. You don't want to send emails to your entire list. You want to segment people that engaged, didn't engage, viewed a product, bought a product and didn't buy this other one. Like, be super personalized. Now, let me talk about last thing here, scale as if you would want to sell your business, even if you don't sell your business. So a one product business, one person business, a one everything business will not scale to 8 figures. And if you do, it's not going to last. Unless you're like some sort of genius, or like, I'm just saying, most of the times, like 99% of the times, 99.99% of the times. So I'm just talking to businesses that I'm referring to business owners that are not like, don't have like the highest IQ or whatever. Like I have a pretty low IQ. I actually don't know what my score is, but I'm not the smartest person in the room. And I'm just thinking how, if I were to be on the other side watching the video, knowing that I'm not the most genius person, this is how I'd run an 8-figure business. Of course, you're going to come across geniuses that just do like a software that everybody uses and it doesn't require support. It doesn't require anything. I don't know. Some sort of unicorn effect. But I'm just saying, traditionally, this is how our clients build. So these are the core fundamental things that you need to get to the next level from an operational standpoint, a profit standpoint, and a revenue generating standpoint, and consistent, basically everything. And this also, like, if you structure a business like this, it also increases your enterprise value, making it way easier to sell if you do, right? Which is why the whole principle behind scale, as if you would want to sell your business, even if you don't, but if you do, you can, right? So team, you absolutely need a systematized team that everybody has a specific role. You can't just have one person do everything. It's not how business works. You should have a pod director, then you should have marketing directors, you can have creative directors, then you have editors and graphic designers and editors that are given tasks to from these directors, and then you can have media buyers on the side that could also be independent and just handle reporting, creative strategists that do the same thing. So every business is structured in a different way, and I also have a video I did a couple days ago talking about team structure, so go look at that video. And then product development, you consistently need to develop products. Okay, every 3 months, at least put something out there in the market, whether it's a complete new product, a variation of your product, a different SKU, something, because people get bored by seeing the same exact things. And this is also a great way to increase the customer return rate. So not return rate, like, how do you say, the retention side. So the percentage of people, of customers that come back and buy again, right? The customer repeat rate. And so if you give them an excuse and say, hey, we just launched new products, then you can just email that, blast it, and get extra revenue just from adding new products to the market. And also just adding more products to the market makes it more professional. Like, you're a very established business that has multiple products offerings. So one other thing that is super duper important is actually building the idea of community. There's nothing worse than building something and then analyzing the business 3 years later and noticing that you just haven't built a community of loyal customers, your subscribers, or potential customers. Like the whole point of building a business is to build assets, and a community can be one of the biggest assets that you can ever build. Okay, accounting infrastructures, I'm not going to talk about that. I mean, you need to do your accounting, you need to do your financing. If you don't know where your numbers are, how can you expect to scale to $1 million a month or more? Okay, so this is very, very basic, boring accounting, but you need it. The boring things are the things that move the needle forward, like tracking, KPI tracking, right? Which is my next point over here, accounting, financing. You need that stuff. Okay, that's why 9-figure businesses spend millions of dollars every year with the best accounting firms or the best lawyers and best tracking operation systems guys over there, whatever. You get my point. And then data tracking, you already know I spoke about. And then revenue distribution. You need to be able to find ways to distribute your revenue. And I do have another chart here just to show you very quickly what I mean. And I spoke about this in my last video. But this is what I mean over here. Having a way to that is very predictable. Whoops, it's not this one. Where is it? This one over here, yeah. Omnipresent. So we want to create channels that bring in revenue. So if you can distribute your revenue from TikTok, from Meta, from Bing, we have a client that's doing Bing ads and it's crushing it. Email, Google, right? Basically not allowing the customer to go out of your sales process. But if you have a business that is 10% email, 20% email, 10% Meta, 30% TikTok, it's way more consistent, and it allows you to just have a lot more peace of mind. And also, if you want to sell it, way higher multiple, you can sell at way higher multiples if you actually have a much more distributed channel in terms of revenue. So these are the things that are really, really important. If you do not do omnipresence, especially if you're already spending over 20-30K a month, you have to do it. Like, you have to get into like even just retargeting from TikTok. You have a client, we scaled to like $10,000 a month extra in budget, and they were spending, I think, 100K on Meta and TikTok, and we're getting 5x ROAS, just retargeting, and slowly we went from retargeting to like seasoning the pixel and then moving to prospecting, which ended up working quite well. But this is what you want to generate over here. That's it for this video. I hope you got some value from it. Let me know if you have any questions, specific questions about this entire process. I did go through several different concepts, so let me know. Stay tuned and see you in the next one. On a side note, before I end it off here, if you actually own an e-commerce business and you want your business and your brand to be audited, we can just hop on a call, hop on a free strategy session with myself or one of my team members, and we can pretty much have a conversation about your roadmap towards next year and how perhaps you can reach your goals. The conversation is very laid back. It's honestly just to understand if there's an opportunity for us to do even business together one day. Okay? With no further ado, thank you once again. And who knows, maybe see you in the next masterclass.